news which is promoted in the West, that it's a dangerous country, people are bad, and everything is about drugs. If you step out, you may get shot. It's not, none of that is true. Yes, there are some patches, some areas that you don't want to go to. I mean, it's not any different than anywhere else. I mean, if you're in the U.S., you just go up like 2 kilometers from the White House, you don't want to be caught dead in that area. It's not like that at all. So that's something, that's where you and I come in, and we clear up some of these misconceptions.
All right, hey y'all. So today I have my good friend with me, Nasim Insari. Nasim and I met in Querétaro. And first off, Marie and I just miss your food so much. And it's hard. I mean, it's not hard to get good food around Mexico, but I think just being around you and the environment that you set within the restaurant and the environment and everything else, we truly miss that environment. So I think when we're telling our friends about Querétaro, one of our biggest highlight was meeting you. So I just want to say thank you for having us at your restaurant, always being so joyful and welcoming and making Maria and I feel at home. So yeah, it's one of the biggest highlights of our
Thank
trip
you.
so far.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
It was a pleasure having you guys over. We always had a good time.
yeah. It's especially a little different because I know about your background and the the cuisine that you serve, even though it's Indian food, and you're Pakistani. So why don't you give us a little background about where you came from, your origins, and I know you've lived in the States for a long. You've lived in Querétaro for quite a long time. Why don't you give us a little background about who you are, where you're from?
Well, originally, my background, of course, I'm from Pakistan, but I was not born there. I was born in Doha, in Qatar, and my parents were from Pakistan, and I moved away from the Middle East, I should say, a while back, about 35 years ago. Moved to the States, lived there for a long, probably like, about 30 years in the US. But when it comes to cuisine, I always liked cooking. I mean, I will always hang around with my mom in the kitchen, messing around with the food and stuff. And later on, and I still kind of kept with it, but never really pursued it professionally until probably 10 years ago. Took some formal training, uh, pretty much like chef techniques and stuff, and then got into it. And then fast forward, you know, moved to South America. I was there about 4 years and ended up with 3 restaurants. That kind of perfected my cooking skills, you can say. And here we are now in Mexico, still with it, still doing the restaurant, still feeding people.
Yeah, I know about your background. That you said you lived in the States for 30 years. What part of the States did you live in?
I lived in Washington, D.C. area, specifically in Virginia, right outside of D.C.
Okay. And once you got out of the Middle East, was DC your first destination?
Yes. Yeah, I always lived in Washington area.
And how did that come about? What made you choose DC? What made you move out of the Middle East in the first place?
Well, I mean, I was looking for, I mean, I went out really for education and stuff. And initially I went to Europe. I was in Switzerland for a year, 1 year there, but it was relatively expensive. So I kind of moved on from Europe to US and, completed my education there. But why Virginia? I have family. My uncles lived there, and I ended up with them to start with, and just pretty much stayed in that area. I mean, once you get into your professional life and stuff, and you don't really move around that much, settle down.
I know you said you were cooking with your mom when you were younger, and you
Yeah.
did the full chef course about 10 years ago. But what were you doing in between then in DC, moving around? What were you doing after you moved to the Middle East as your profession in DC?
Well, after I finished my education, which was MBA from GW, I ended up in hospitality. Well, that was my specialization. So I worked for many years with the hotels, managing restaurants, until I got tired of that. But back in the days, my kids were little, and the hospitality industry is very demanding, too many hours. So anyway, just quit that and got into technology, IT. Started developing internet applications. So did that for several years, about 9 years, and then back to kitchen. So.
So after kind of setting your career and setting out the business within Virginia, then you decided to really fulfill your path into following the cuisine cooking world?
Yes, you can say that.
Gotcha. And how did you, I know we met in Mexico, so what was your transition like going from DC, Virginia to moving? You've been in Mexico for how long?
4 years now.
4 years. So what was
Yeah.
that transition like? What made you choose Mexico? And what can you say about the transition? How has it been?
Well, you can say, Mexico chose me. I was in Washington, D.C. area where I met my wife. She was there doing her thing. She was there on technical tour. Anyway, we met, and I decided to come with her to Mexico. And I kind of liked it, and I decided to stay. And it has been really interesting experience. I know in the U.S. there's a lot of negativity goes with Mexico, but it's not like that. I arrived in Mexico City, a huge city, and then from there kind of transition out to Querétaro. You were here too. It's a nice place and comfortable, good weather, safe. So I haven't really had any negative. I don't have anything negative things to say. Um, Talking about my personal experience, it has been good overall.
Yeah, and I think that's what I try to tell a lot of my friends too. Mexico is not what the news publication makes it out to be. Maria and I, today is October 12, and Maria and I have officially been here for about 3.5 months. And everywhere we've been, I think we've just felt extremely safe. Like any old adage is, if you look for trouble, you'll probably find it. And
Right.
I think we're the type of people that are super low key, that we don't really look for that kind of stuff. So it's just a huge misconception throughout the world. And I think even everyone back home, but especially for you, like having traveled throughout Middle East, to Switzerland, through Bolivia, through living in the States for so long, like what does the world not know about Mexico? Like what's a huge misconception?
Well, the huge misconception, I would say probably comes from the negative news, which is promoted in the West. That it's a dangerous country, people are bad, and everything is about drugs. If you step out, you may get shot. It's not, none of that is true. Yes, there are some patches, some areas that you don't want to go to. It's not any different than anywhere else. If you're in the U.S., you just go up 2 kilometers from the White House. You don't want to be caught dead in that area. So that's the reality. So it's not like that at all. So that's something, that's where you and I come in, and we clear up some of these misconceptions. And I think it's people need to know it's not like that. You're welcome to come, and I'll cook for you.
It's such a funny thing, man. I wish more people would come and visit. I think it's so close down to the south of the border, but there's so much misconception of what's happening
Yes.
here. And even like you said, in DC, 2 blocks away from the White House, that's essentially a third world city in that like state, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all good. You know, I mean, like you said, if you're looking for trouble, you'll find it anywhere, really. But it's a beautiful country. There are a lot of good things here, and great food and great weather. I mean, especially where we're at. So it's just come on down.
Yeah. So you've been in Mexico for 4 years and you've ran businesses in DC, in Virginia. What are you currently doing in Querétaro? What are you currently doing in Mexico?
Well, right now, I mean, as you know, that I have a restaurant in Querétaro, and we have, again, we have the restaurant operation or a food operation in San Miguel de Allende, and actually, it's in a couple of weeks we are starting our food operation in Tiquisquiapan. That's not too far from Peña de Bernal. And in addition to that, I stay busy. We started an advertising agency. So we're in the middle of that right now with that startup. In addition to that, we are also setting up a Pakistan Cultural Center. That would be the first Pakistan Cultural Center in Mexico, as well as in America or Latin America on the whole.
Yep, and I know you're doing quite a few things in Querétaro. What is it like owning a restaurant in Mexico as, I guess, as an immigrant? Are we immigrants? Are you still an immigrant? Or
Well, I have always been an immigrant, man, here or in the US. I'm okay with that. It's
right.
all good. In comparison with the US, I think it's much easier to own and operate a restaurant in Mexico. I mean, first of all, your overheads are much lower. Labor is cheaper. The laws are quite relaxed. So I find it much easier to work here. Yes, now, if we are comparing apples and oranges, you don't earn that kind of money. Here we work we're in Mexico, we earn in pesos. So if you're in the US, it all goes hand in hand. So those things are okay, really. So back to your question. Yes, it has been easier for me to operate here in Mexico.
And as far as obtaining a business license, as far as doing everything on the legality side, is it hard? Like for people that want to move to Mexico who are thinking about relocating from the US and opening up a business in Mexico, in Querétaro, whether it is a restaurant or an advertising agency or a culture center, is it hard for people that wants to immigrate to Mexico to open a business?
Not really, but again, I mean, if you go to a new country, you have to spend some time, learn the system, learn the language. It gets easier. But once you're up to speed, it's actually much easier than the U.S. Like I said, the laws and the rules and regulations are much relaxed for business owners here. Nobody's, like in the U.S., for example, the regulations are tight, and it's expensive. Especially if we're talking restaurants in the U.S., it's expensive to own and operate everything. Like from liability insurance to wages and rents and everything. I mean, everything in between is high. Here, it's much cheaper and much easier. Not only that, I mean, Mexicans are easygoing people. They're not, like in the US, you find everybody so stressed out. They're not like that. They're easygoing, and it works out for business owners quite well, actually.
Yeah, and I guess it's relative to the kind of life you want that correlates with the business, right? It's how much you want to put into it versus like
Sure.
I think anywhere in the States, you already have a predetermined set of hours that society thinks you need to work or you need to put in the business, whether you're working 70, 80 hours a week and to obtain this goal versus living in a much more relaxed system, like you said, in Mexico, where maybe you're not earning as much, but the overhead isn't as much either, and the quality
Sure.
of life might just be a lot more fair and balanced.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. This is, I mean, I've been here 4 years, and I have spent about 4 years in South America in Bolivia. And equally so, it was about the same. It was kind of relaxed atmosphere. but it's just a matter of personal choice, how much you want to put in. I mean, there's no limit to it. You can work all day, all night if you want. But for me, it has been pretty decent.
Yeah, and I mean, you do a lot of things in Querétaro, so it kind of just shows you like if you really just want to be able to immigrate to a country, whether it's Mexico, Thailand, or whatever it is, as an American, as long as you kind of have that work ethic and the ability to really like get to where you want to go, I think anything's kind of possible, right? It just kind of depends
Sure,
the life you
absolutely.
want. Yeah. So tell us about your advertising agency.
Well, it's a new startup. We're in the middle of it right now, and the focus of the agency is, you can call it, it's like a production company, video production company. We specialize in commercials. We make video commercials for social media distribution. That's pretty much in the nutshell right there. So yes, we are setting it up, and we have a full team and a studio.
Yeah, I'm excited for you guys to really launch that. I was fortunate enough to take a tour of the studio and how you guys operate, and it was really for a startup in that small of a space. It was really impressive to see. So I think you guys have a really good future ahead. And who are you marketing towards? I know you've mentioned social media. Is it in Querétaro? Is it in Mexico? Is it kind of multiple countries right now, or who are you marketing to?
Right now, our core focus is Mexico. So we foresee that we will be covering from Guadalajara, San Miguel de Allende, and San Luis Potosí, Querétaro, all the way to Mexico City. But again, we'll look at it. We'll look at the logistics. If it works out for us, we will probably take it into the U.S. as well as Canada. I spent several years in the U.S. I own an advertising agency in the U.S. for several years, about 5 or 6 years. So I took that opportunity and utilizing my advertising background and started setting up a new company here.
What's the agency name?
Media Loca.
The website is live and up and running, correct?
Yes, it is. It's medialoca.mx. And then for the US market will be the same name, Media Loca. Well, it's already up, but not completely populated. It's medialoca.us.
Awesome. And I know from firsthand experience, you designed and created both of the websites.
I do. Yeah, I spent
Yes.
many years in IT. I've done it all, man.
Yes. Nasim is a man of many talents. So it's,
Yes.
yeah, it's great. It's great, especially in the production world, to know someone that has a good amount of knowledge within everything encapsulated within production. So that's always important too. And one thing I'm really excited to hear about is the cultural center. And I know when we're in Querétaro, you and I were kind of discussing that a bit. But why don't you tell us a little bit of what the Pakistani Cultural Center is?
Well, when there's it's like this. Like for Americans, like they tell them, don't go to Mexico, it's no good place, right? So it's really not any different. There's a lot of misconception about Pakistan as well.
Mm.
And I saw the opportunity that we need to present our homeland or our country in a positive light. And I do this all the time since I'm in a restaurant business. It's a Pakistani/Indian food anyway. So, that gives me the opportunity to talk to people, tell them more about our country and culture and whatnot. So I saw the need, if we can bring it together, or structure it in a way that we can, do more for the country or for the culture itself, and educate people who we are, where we come from. It's not all that bad. So that's how it's all started out. But one of the things that I foresee happening, arranging tours for Mexicans to travel to Pakistan and vice versa. And I wish that Pakistani would take the opportunity and come see Mexico. And you can call it some sort of cultural exchange operation. And hopefully it works out that way.
Do you think Pakistan is as misunderstood as Mexico
Oh,
throughout.
absolutely. 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 I mean, it's unfortunate how these countries are portrayed by the West. It's nothing new. We know that. But it's our job to educate people that, and tell them more about who we are and where we come from, and kind of stay away from the negativity. Every country has some negative things. I mean, let's not focus on that. Let's focus on the positives. And that's what I'm doing. Well, let's start with the cuisine, right?
So
I mean, you have tried our food. The food is good, it's fresh, it's healthy, and it comes with a long history. The Pakistani cuisine itself, or cuisine of that part of the world, has a 6,000 years of history. That's right there. You have some positivity. And in addition to that, I mean, if you do get the chance to travel to Pakistan, you will see that people are they're very friendly, very hospitable. The country is beautiful. I mean, big cities are big city, of course. Big city, large population has its own problems. But if you happen to go to the north side, we call it actually Switzerland of the East.
mm,
It's just a beautiful place, and we will make every effort to expose that to Mexico at least, or to the Latin world.
I've shot so many Pakistani weddings, and Pakistan families are always so heart welcoming and heartwarming. They really invite you to the family, like you are their family, and it's everything I've experienced with the Middle East and with folks from Mexico, and like as you were saying earlier, how the West kind of portrayed these countries, and it's just complete opposite to what the truth actually is. You
Right.
know, yeah. So it's one of the it's what I think, like you said, is really important as far as the Pakistan Cultural Center and the cultural exchange between Pakistan and Mexico. I mean, I don't know how these two countries view each other, but I think it's also important that they do kind of see that perspective. So
Right.
even with the cultural center, when do you expect that to get that going?
I think most likely we will launch it. Well, right now we're in the middle of pandemic. So I would say probably most likely, depending again on the situation on the ground, we will probably initiate the operation in February next year.
Yeah. And even, man, sometimes I forget about the pandemic, and it's
Yeah.
it's kind of it's kind of crazy. How has the pandemic affected Mexico? How has the pandemic affected you, doing so many things? I mean, it doesn't look like it's stopping you from doing all the things you want to do, but how is it preventing Mexicans and Mexico to fully, like, yeah, how is it affecting Mexico?
Well, again, depends where you happen to be. I mean, if you are close to Mexico City, or even to some close to some bordering city like Tijuana. I know Cancun is not doing that well. There are some issues, of course, but we have been lucky in that regard. Querétaro is doing I mean, is doing really well. We don't have that many cases, and business is as usual. Yes, we went through our own quarantine time for about 4 or 5 months. Those days were difficult. But I mean, now it seems things are, they're going back to normal, and hopefully we'll continue to make some progress in that area. It did affect us business wise. Yes, it sure did. You can say we were pretty much disabled for several months. But now, I mean, you have seen we are fully functional right now, and people are coming in and out, and it has been great. But again, we have to be careful. We're taking precautions that we need to take. So it's moving forward, getting better.
Yeah, yeah, and I think for you guys, especially being in the current space you are in, it always seems to be kind of people that are friends or people that are aware of the cuisine that you serve. So it's always a good perspective to see that you're always kind of full. So that's pretty awesome to see.
Yeah, yeah. We're blessed in that regard.
It's tough. I mean, we're now in Oaxaca, and Oaxaca is there's so many things that are closed, which is one of the weirdest things Maria and I kind of experienced, is that we got served with shrink wrap on our food. So like our plate was completely covered in shrink wrap on top, and it's a weird yeah,
Yeah.
it's a weird time, man.
Well,
You know?
at least they're taking precautions. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, yeah, I fully appreciate it. It's so during COVID, I know you were down for 3 4 months. What did you do during those months?
Well, like many restaurants or about people in food business, we made some changes. So since nobody was able to come in or walk in, so we had no walk-ins, so we kind of shifted the focus towards delivery. And so we were delivering a lot of food in different places, and in some cases, I mean, I ended up really taking the foods all the way to St. Louis Potosí in
Wow.
quantity, of course. But we had to adapt to a whole new set of rules and way of doing business. But we kind of survived. We pulled it through.
And San Luis Potosi is quite a distance away.
It's about 3 hours, something like that, right?
Yeah. Did you get a chance to challenge your cuisine experimentation? Did you experiment with different type of cooking? Since it's kind of quiet, like, did you? I know when we were there, you kind of served us multiple cuisines, which was amazing. But in that regard, like, what are some of your favorite cuisines to cook, or like, what are some favorite things? Like, what are some of your favorite cuisines to eat?
Well, to eat, I mean, I like everything, of course, but my favorite few. Thai is on the top of the list. I enjoy Thai food. I mean, we made some. Remember, I don't know if you did. We make it with you? No, I don't think we did. But we made something. I think we made Chinese one day, right? Yeah, I enjoy Chinese, but I miss those cuisines because we don't have them here. So I end up cooking those cuisines myself. So yeah, we have done some experimentation with you can call it fusion with Mexican concepts, food concepts. For example, I have a dish called nopales masala. We don't have nopales. I mean, or we do, but we don't use cactus in our food in our countries in our cuisine. So anyway, that was interesting. So we started making nopales masala with my own recipes, and that came out pretty decent. So,
And do you just draw that inspiration from creativity, out of boredom, or seeing the things you
both.
missed?
you know, you get tired of eating the same thing every day, so you come to a point of like, okay, let's cook something different. So I mean, Randy used to come, a friend of ours. So we used to cook all kind of different foods from Indian, Pakistani, Arabian, Thai, Chinese, you name it.
Yep, yep.
It's very satisfying, I must say.
Yeah, and it's especially now, it's in the amount of years that you've had in the kitchen and being a chef, what are what still inspires you to find new cuisine, to try new cuisine? What inspires you to experiment with different things?
Well, I'll be honest with you. Since there's not good Chinese restaurant here, it kind of forced me to start cooking Chinese food. I mean, back in the U.S., you don't have to do that. There's a Chinese restaurant around every corner. But no, that's not the case here. So, I mean, it gives me sense of satisfaction too. I mean, I'm getting to cook something different. So this fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yep. And then let's say you had a few years to kind of just go around and travel. What's like your top country you would like to travel in and experiment with the cuisine, either learning from a chef within that country or opening a restaurant? What's your top country that you like to try?
Well, I think, since I've never lived in my own country, I spend very little time. I would like to go to Pakistan and perhaps
Mm,
work traditional
mm,
cook in an old town, Lahore, perhaps,
mm.
right down to nitty gritties. So I would like to do that. Spend some time. If I ever had some time, I would do that. Go to my own country and learn the roots of the cuisine itself. That would
Yeah,
be, I think, awesome.
yeah. It's kind of like a pilgrimage to the motherland. in the
Yes,
cuisine
definitely.
in a
Yes,
cuisine
definitely.
world,
Yeah. Back to Mecca.
with you start in the cultural center, you have more reasons to go back and probably more
Definitely.
opportunities too.
Definitely. I
Yeah.
think it would be nice, and with the different perspectives, at least.
Yeah, as far as we know, we'll probably stay here for the next couple months. So I think we have some plans, maybe to go back to Querétaro and visit you. And I know you're traveling as well. I think in the next month or so, you're traveling to a destination.
Yes, I'm actually going to South America, going to Bolivia, and I'll make a stop in the US as well. I'll spend about a month in South America, in Bolivia, traveling around, doing cooking events and stuff. And then on the way back, I'll stop for a week in Washington, D.C.
And I know you've had some time in Bolivia itself, right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
what were you doing in Bolivia?
Well, I had restaurants. I ended up with 3 restaurants in Bolivia. So, life changes, and then I ended up back in Washington, and now look at me. Here I am again in Mexico, back to Latin world.
Talking about going back to America, what are some things you miss about the States?
I mean, in the US, we have everything so well organized. Here is opposite. So I miss that organized, everything is well structured. Like if you want to order something online, it's no big deal. 2 clicks and you're done, and you get your delivery in a timely fashion. No, that's not true here. So it's a struggle uphill. If you want to order something online, for example, good luck with that. You may
Yeah.
get it, you may not get it. So those kind of, I mean, that's one of the examples I miss. And plus, I mean, of course, my family lives in the US, and I'm looking forward to going back home and seeing them.
All right. So this podcast is really meant to bring in people that want to immigrate from their current country to wherever country there is. If you can give some advice to some people that are afraid to make the move, whether it's to Pakistan or whether it's to Mexico, preferably Querétaro, visit you, what would you tell them?
Well, if somebody is planning to relocate to any country for that matter, you just really do your homework. You know, get as much information as you can get about that destination and come visit. You're thinking about moving to Mexico, come visit. I mean, like what you guys are doing. Going around, learning culture and language and experiences. That's important. And then make your decision based on your personal experiences.
So Nasim, where can people find you? And where can people find the restaurant? Where can people find, I know you've given the website to Media Loca, but where can people find you on Facebook if they have any questions on what it's like to live in Querétaro, or if they have any questions regarding in the restaurant industry, where can people find you?
Well, if you happen to be in Querétaro, the restaurant is under the name of Shahana Express. We do have a website. It's shahanaexpress.com, as well as we do have a solid presence on social media. But if you want to connect with me directly, you can find me under my name, which is Nasim Insari. So it says if you happen to be here, please stop by. We're always available to chat. It's not a problem.
Yeah. All right, brother.
All
I
right.
thank you for your time. Like we said, Maria and I miss you. We
Yeah,
miss the
miss you
food
too.
and we miss Querétaro. But we look forward to seeing you again, hopefully pretty
Sure.
soon. So
Sure.
we'll see where it goes.
Thank you.
Nasim, thank you
Thanks,
for your
Kenny.
time, and we'll chat soon.
Welcome to Trivago. Tell me who you know, who is it tripping for a follow? Ball in the air like Showtime at the Apollo. Puffing up your chest and